E20 Zone TV back again in the room, and I am joined by Hammers Chat's very own Charlie Walsh. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I just shoved too many crisps in my mouth, and then I did this, so I don't know. I'm all right though. I'm not too bad. I mean, given the results today, I'm okay considering.
I must admit, mate, I'm quite stunned, really. Like how we can go from that to that, but it's just like we all thought the old West Ham way was dead, but it's still there slightly in spells. You know what I mean? But we'll get into it in 1 minute. What did you just quickly, Charlie? Right, there was a protest today. I just want to ask you something. Did the protest affect the result at all?
I don't think so. They haven't. They haven't affected results before. If anything, we seem to have played better when they happened. And to be fair, there's been some form of protest through most of lockdown at the stadium. So I don't think so. And I only really, to be honest with you, only saw one picture of it, so it can't have been a huge effect thing. What do you think?
So I totally agree, mate. Last season they was protesting every game, and we was winning every game. So you can't be blaming it when we lose, and when we win, it's not down to them. It's just because of the team. So yeah, I agree with you totally there, mate. But we'll get into it. We'll start off with this man in goal. I think this is going to be. Is this the beginning of the end for Fabianski, Charlie? For you?
I don't know is the truth. Because I think the thing is, I think everyone, similar to how we spoke about Noble to an extent, I think even the best have missed sometimes, sort of thing. And I think Fabianski, obviously his levels have dropped since where they were a couple of seasons ago. But a couple of seasons ago, he was one of the best goalkeepers in the Prem. Now he's a reliable, solid goalkeeper. We'll see what happens. I think we've obviously got in Areola because Fabianski's on the last year of his contract anyway. We'll see how it develops. It wouldn't shock me if Fabianski was in goal a lot more than we all think. And to be honest, we've got so many games coming up that he's gonna have to be. It's just going to happen. But it wouldn't shock me if he was in goal a lot more than we think he will right now. But he had a poor game today.
Yeah. Well, let's get into his game then. He makes a great save from Ivan Toney. Really, really good save. The first goal, Charlie, is he to blame, or is it a good save and he's unlucky, in your opinion?
I think he's a good save. I think if anyone's at fault there, it would be defenders for me for not reacting as fast as Mbemo. I felt like he did like full stretch, low, hard, far. It was very, you can't catch those sort of ones.
Sergio Canos, who we spoke about as the shot, and he saves it.
Yeah.
And then Mbemo comes in and it's literally millimetres over the line. Now, if he... It's night and day, innit? Let's be honest. If he saves it and he goes out and everyone's applauded him saying, what a great save and this and that, it goes over the line by a millimetre and people are saying he's at fault. I don't think he's at fault for the first goal. I agree with you. Where's the defenders for starters? Like, why's the shot? Why they allow that pass from Toney into Canis? Like, why? Do you know what I mean? But the first goal was not at fault for me. What do you make of him in the second half? He didn't really have a lot to do up till the last.
Till the goal. Till the goal, really. I mean, okay, so I should say this as we start as well. I obviously watched the game very differently to a lot of people because I'm doing a watch along. And so I'm watching the game and trying to interact with the live chat and doing the live stream stuff I need to do to make everything work. So I do naturally just miss certain things sometimes. And so when I was thinking back to it, the only thing I can really remember him doing in that second half was the goal. I can't really remember anything else that actually he was called upon to do. And even to an extent, the goal, my gut reaction was that he needed to catch it. It should have been a catch. That was my gut reaction. But the thing is, I don't even mind if you're not going to catch it, but you just got to put it anywhere but
in front of you,
basically. And it went directly. It could not have landed better for Wissa. It's frustrating. I don't know. It's just poor.
I I think it's schoolboy, mate. If I'm honest, I really do. I think that header comes out, you push it wide. You don't. One thing you don't do, and I think we've all watched football enough, and we've all sort of experienced football in our lifetime to go. You don't push the ball back out into open play. You push it wide. If that goes out for a corner, everyone's happy. Do you know what I mean? He's pushed it straight out, and then not only that, he's pushed it straight out to a player who's on form, who's absolutely smacked it, and he's just got in the bottom corner. So, with all that said, Charlie, what's your rating for Fabianski, mate?
Probably, I'm trying to decide. Part of me is trying to decide where my ratings come down on what's a passing grade, and I guess if I'm saying a passing grade is a 6, then he was a 5. If you see what I'm saying.
I'm going to absolutely agree with you there, mate. I think he's a 5. I think he done a great save again with Tony in the first half. Yeah. I agree with that, and that's a good save. The first goal is not at fault with, really. Where's the defending? But the second goal, mate, is a killer. It's a killer. I think if that's Areola, I think he's out of his box. I think he's coming out and punching that clear. And that's the difference. And yeah, I think a 5. So I'm going to have to agree with you on that. The next game, Charlie, do you stay with Fab or do you put Areola in? Yes or no?
Again, I'm trying to think of it more as one game because I thought he's been. I think Fabianski's been better than most other people have felt like. I've had a bit more faith in him in that sense. Today was certainly a hit, but it's come A at the right time because we have the international break, and B at the right time because we now actually have a genuine first choice goalkeeper sat there waiting to sort of exist. I personally would put in Areola for 2 reasons. One, because Fabianski had a relatively poor game, and so you want to switch it up and sort of give it time, give the backup person time if that is the case. But also 2, because Fabianski doesn't seem to be the long-term option at West Ham. His contract's coming to an end this year. We've got Areola sitting there waiting to basically sign full-time next summer. And in that case, if in the next game we are playing our strongest 11, which I believe is it Everton at home?
Yeah, Everton away, mate.
Everton away.
Sunday.
If that's the one that we're playing our strongest first 11 in, as opposed to the Europa League or anything else, then you put Areola in specifically so he gets the chance to mould and build that partnership with Zuma and Ogbonna that will be so effective. That's kind of why I would switch him out. Also, I think it sends a bit of a point that no matter how good you've been in the past, you have to continue being good to continue to earn your place. But I think he will play though. I will say that I do think he will start the next game.
For me, I'm going to say this before we move on to the next player. I just think Areola needs to come in there. I really do. Give him a chance in the Prem. Do you know what I mean? He's our first choice goalkeeper next season. And I know Areola, Fab's been good this season. He's been good for us. But there's a change of the guard, isn't there, Charlie? And you've got to start. You've got to change it eventually. You can't just keep expecting us to sort of sit on the bench and not do nothing. But yeah, we will see. We will see. Moving on to this man, Vladimir Kefal, and this is going to be rough for me because I've been praising him up. He's just reportedly been offered a new contract, and he turns up today and he looks like he's a completely different player. What's your thoughts, Charlie?
If you'd said to me before the game, down that side, you have 2 fullbacks, you have Kefal and Henry, which one were going to be looking like the better 1v1 defenders, I would have probably punched you in the face if you said Rico Henry. I would not punch you in the face because I'm not a violent man, but I would have mocked you relentlessly. And I think he got shown up massively for it. Massive. There were times in that first half where Rico Henry was sort of running towards him, and Kefal was in an okay position to start with, but then he would just be backing up. But he wasn't backing up this close to Henry, not giving Henry options.
He was scared of his pace.
Significantly away from him, and it was just letting Henry get cross after cross after cross in, and you're sitting there and you're thinking, what happens? Like, usually, if a winger is in that sort of position with Kefal, I'm really confident because I think he's going to get the spacing right. He's going to understand what he needs to do and just stamp it out. But for some reason today, he was all over the shop, and that first 45 minutes specifically was really poor.
Was he fit, Charlie? In your opinion? I don't think he was.
I think it's an easy thing to point at, isn't it? We knew that he was a doubt going in. It was 50-50. It's easy to say he probably wasn't fit. And I want to believe that it is that he wasn't fit, because it's just quite easy to say, yeah, he wasn't fit, and then you move on. And then after the international break, hopefully he comes back fit again. But man, not a good game. Not a good game. Better in the second half. I do think there was a marked improvement in the second half, but not enough to where I was like, he had an okay game. I think he was poor. And in that first half, he was... I was almost shocked that they were just working their way, because obviously they've got Rico Henry, who's more reliable going forward than Sergio Canos is. Like in general, Rico Henry is probably a better footballer than him.
Was you shocked how good Rico Henry is, mate?
No, see, the thing is, I really like Rico Henry. I was shocked how good he was at defending, because every time I watch Rico Henry, and I've watched Brentford a fair bit in the Championship, I was like, I really like this player. I think he's really good, but the one weakness in his game is kind of defensive positioning and stuff. I always find that he's a little bit off. But then when Kefal was going up the other end and doing what Rico Henry was doing to him, Henry was getting like proper touch tights with him. And Kefal was there, and you could see him trying to open up his body to hit those crosses in. And Henry was just stopping him. He was just in the way constantly. And that's the kind of... It was a flip reverse of exactly what I would have expected. I thought Rico Henry had a really good game, but... it was stark to me standing next to Kefal, who usually is the exact opposite of that. I just flipping out, man. I don't get it. Yeah. I want to say it's the fitness thing, but.
So what's your rating then, Charlie, for Mr. Kefal?
Again, I'll say 5. If 6 is a passing grade, then it has to be underneath that. It has to be a 5. It's not much lower than that, because he did get better in the second half. He did start delivering some crosses. It wasn't anywhere near consistently enough. But he was finding good space. He was finding good runs as well. So I wouldn't go as low as a 4, even though I was considering it for both him and Fabianski. So I'll say 5. But yeah, man.
I'm going to have to go 4, mate, I'm afraid.
I think it's fair.
Yeah. And the reason why I've got to go 4, because he don't put in bad performances like that. And to me, he wasn't fit, in my opinion. I just don't... I know it's an easy excuse after the event, but... I looked at him today and I just thought he was a shadow of himself. He looked out of position. His awareness was not there. He's miles away, just miles off it. I just couldn't understand why. And I've got to give him a 4, mate. I just think second half, fair enough, he did try a bit better, but I think Rico Henry had him in his pocket today, massively. And that's the man I've been crying for at West Ham for a long time, because I just think I said he's a great player. And he's got bags of potential. He's proved it today, mate. It really did. But moving on to this man, the other side, Mr. Cresswell. What's your thoughts, mate?
The better of the two. I think very easy to say, but true. I always feel really 50-50 about Cresswell's corners and stuff. I always feel like he either puts in an absolute pearl or they're just kind of pointless, and I don't get why they're happening. And I think he was better. There were more good ones than bad ones today. He didn't get into the positions I like to see him get into to cross the ball as much as he usually does. He certainly wasn't as effective as that. And defending, he was much of a muchness. Yeah, I don't know. Sort of not quite a nothingy game. But to be honest with you, I'm trying to think. I mean, we'll see. I guess we'll see when I get put on the spot with the other two later. But maybe our best defender today, I think. Maybe, I don't know. I'd have to think about
that. I think it's a very, very high 6 for me. But it's just not a 7. I just thought those are... And how can I put this? I agree with you on the corner front. It's one good corner, 2 bad ones. That's what it seems like it is all the time now. It's just not consistent enough. Where he used to be such a good set piece delivery of a ball. If you take that away from Cresswell, what does Cresswell actually do? So he's not really... I ain't gonna say he's a masterclass defender, but he's not exactly like top draw, is he? Do you know what I mean? So it's sort of...
I think he's decent. If we're speaking about Cresswell in general, not specifically today, I think he's fairly decent going forward in the role he's asked to do. I don't know if we were playing a different system or had a different manager, I don't know how confident I would be with Aaron Cresswell being the left back. I think he works specifically for David Moyes, and he does get into some positions where he's crossing maybe slightly earlier than you would feel like he should be, but his delivery is so good from those crosses that it works. Or maybe not so good, but they consistently cause problems for defenders. But yeah, defensively, I don't think he's a stalwart. I think it's easy to say because he's standing next to Masuaku, who can't defend full stop.
Yeah.
And so it's like it makes him look better than he is defensively, but I think he's probably fine, I guess.
But is he, how can I put this? Is he better in a free though, Charlie? Like, to me, I look at Cresswell in a free and I think, yeah, he's all right. He can do a good job in a free. But as a left back, I just think pace kills him. And I've always said that. And that's why Fornals, it's the old debate. Fornals plays and works so hard because Cresswell is a bit vulnerable at left back.
I mean, I think Fornals plays and works so hard because that's just what David Moyes wants his wide players to do, to be fair. Because I think Jared Bowen does the same thing. I think he gets back just as well, and Kefal's obviously significantly better defender. But pace isn't exactly Cresswell's jam. I think Cresswell's fine. The thing is, I think he's all right. I think, as you say, I think if you're playing a back three, what works with Aaron Cresswell is he still has that sort of passing ability where he has good crosses and he has decent passing and because he played fullback, he can dribble and move forward with the ball. Pardon me. So when you're playing in a back three on that left hand side and he's given the license to move forward, it allows him that sort of freedom to really concentrate on what he's best at doing, which is delivering passing, basically, be it crossing or short passing, whatever. So when you're asking him to play fullback, there is just an extra dimension there, and I think it works, but that's mainly just because it's our best option, if you see what I'm saying. And like he was always like, and in the summer, he like left back was always sort of on my list of things I would like to bring in because I feel like, especially if we're playing a back four, and actually especially now I look at our team as we have been for the last couple of weeks, I think left back is the obvious place to improve. Probably the first place you'd improve, really.
100%, mate. I 100% agree with you. So your rating is finally, Charlie, before we move on for Cresswell.
6. I'll say 6. I'll say 6 as well. I think that's a fair shout.
Yeah. I'll give him a high 6, very, very high 6, but just not a 7 for me. Moving on to this man, Kirk Zuma. I don't know where to start with him, mate, really. I thought he was okay, but it was just okay. Do you know what I mean? What's your thoughts, Charlie?
I think I was disappointed by both the centre backs today.
Who disappointed you more, though, Charlie? Because Ogbonna hasn't played, and Zuma, we know what we're getting with Zuma, obviously.
I think I was probably more disappointed by Zuma, but mainly because I expected maybe more from him. And there was a couple of times where he made obvious positional errors. I can't remember which one it was. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I can't remember what it was, but there was someone was coming through. It was when Brentford was shooting left. Someone was coming through and he sort of stepped forward in a sort of stuttery way. And you could see him visibly go, oh, should I go forward? Like there was a big like judder in his movements. And I think it was Tony who it let steam through past him. He might have ended up getting a yellow card. Did he get a yellow card?
Yeah, that was in the first half. The second half, though, he did do a good recovery tackle. Someone went through for Brentford. I can't remember. I think it was Tony again. And he managed to get in there, get his body in there and wrap his foot around and get it clear. But
I just think maybe it's just high standards, and I'm sort of like, and because I think I don't think there's not many people who came across today as like being that good. So I was like, but it was difficult. It's difficult, and I think that central four of Zuma, Ogbonna, Rice, Souček, they have been left and look a little bit shaky and exposed when we're playing against teams with high press, and that just kind of concerns me a little bit. But I do, in the second half, he probably played a little bit better. I think you're right there in general. I'd probably give him if we're saying highs and lows and that sort of thing, I'd probably give him a high 5, maybe, or a low 6, one of the two. I can't decide. Let's say low 6. Let's give him a bit more credit than I guess.
I'm gonna agree with you on the low 6. I thought personally, Charlie, that Ogbonna made him look bad today, and that is me being as as real as I can be here. I thought a Bonner, who we're going to get onto next, who I thought was pretty dreadful, if I'm honest. But I'm giving him a low 6. I think a 5's too harsh, really. I don't think he was bad, because he did win a few good balls in the air. He was quite dominant, and he did have a great chance in the first half where he should be burying that from a corner. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I'll give him a very low 6 for me. But this man, who I'm going to get on to, Mr. Angelo, I love this man. He's been a good player for us. But I think we've started to see him declining, and today proved it. Pace just killed him completely.
He's never been fast. I think he's always flattered to deceive with pace, to be honest with you. There's been times where he's running backwards and I'm like, are you jogging? I don't understand. I feel like, but I think he's got what Ogbonna has done is over the last, since he signed, I think his awareness and positioning has got significantly better. I feel like there were times at Upton Park and the first season at the LS where I was like, you're so high up the pitch and I don't know what's going on here. And I don't know. And like, to be fair to him, that might have been a tactical thing. But the last couple of years after that, I always felt like he was really shaky during those times. I was always like, he has a purple patch for a couple of games and then turns into nothing for a couple of games. But he's sort of got more consistent. And I think part of that is positioning. Like you say today, I was disappointed by both centre-backs. And I feel like, I think what you're saying there about Zuma looking bad because of him sort of thing, I think that's probably a little bit fair. I think that's probably fair enough. He was the worst of the two. I don't know. It's disappointing. I'd say if I gave Zuma, let me put it this way, if I gave Zuma a low 6, I'd probably give him a high 5, and I don't mean high 5, but it's just like, I don't know. Just defense, man. Like I say, that quartet, I feel like I'm really concerned about when they get.
I'm just seeing the goal. I'm just seeing the goal here for the first goal, and a Bonner just lets Mbeumo just run straight past him for the first goal, and I'm like,
oh yeah, I see what you're saying now. Yeah,
do you know what I mean? If you want me to rate him first, Charlie, I'll rate him a 4, mate. And I know that might sound harsh, but I thought he gives away the free kick for the second goal. He lets Mbeumo run off him for the first goal. He's so slow to everything. He's out of position. He's out of position for Zuma when Zuma gets booked. Like, he's massively out of position. He gets a 4 for me, and it could have been a 3. I don't even gonna lie. I just thought, Angelo, he's had a week's rest. He should be fully fit, ready to go. And he's just seemed like he had played Thursday night, full 90 minutes, and played a full 90 minutes today. And you know what I mean? Just wasn't the same player, mate. I'm honest. So 4 for me. What you giving him, Charlie?
I'll stick with my 5, but I'm glad we have Kirk Zuma in potentially. I mean, if Diop ever gets back to his best, which to be fair, he seems to be playing pretty decently now, and Dawson's in good form. We can kind of afford to have Ogbonna take a drop, but we'll see. It's only one game, but I'll stick with 5 now.
That's fair enough, mate. It's fair enough. Let's move on to this man, Thomas Souček. What has gone wrong with this man, Charlie? From
talk of the moment. The talk of the moment. Everyone is asking. Everyone is talking about it. Every show I go on, everyone's like, "What's gone on with Thomas Souček?" I mean, it's just a different role. It's just not his role. That's the facts of the matter. Really, he's good at. He's not a bad defender. He's good going forward. And he's not a good passer. That's his big fault, isn't it? And it always has been. It's just before it wasn't really being exposed as much. Whereas now, especially against Leeds in this, again, you just press the double pivot, and all of a sudden we are in trouble. We really don't know how to deal with it whatsoever. And it continues to be a problem. I thought it was going to be a problem today, but I thought similarly to Leeds, we would find a way around it. The one thing I didn't take into account is that Brentford's manager isn't Marcelo Bielsa, who the definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Yeah. Marcelo Bielsa's a lunatic, bruv. He's certifiable. He will keep doing the same thing for 90 minutes, regardless of how effective it is. He will just keep going. Whereas Brentford changed up their style of attack, and that helps. So, I mean, it's a struggle for him in the formation. It's a struggle for him with the partner he has. It's just not working out for him right now. I think it can do, but we need to figure out what to do with it.
Is fatigue playing a factor with him, though?
I think I'll be real with you. I think it's an easy cop out. I think it's an easy cop out. I think it's an easy cop out to say, well, he's probably a bit tired. He's done a lot of things. And I'm not saying that's not true. Obviously, I think that's probably part of it, at least to some extent, at least a small part of it, right? He's played a hell of a lot of football in a row. But to be honest with you, the system just does not suit him, and it will never suit him. You know, if he's not being pressed, if that double pivot isn't being pressed, and he has the time to find a pass, then I think it's a little bit less of a stress for him. Because if Kefal can get a little bit further forward, that's an extra option. Declan Rice isn't being forced all the way back to centre-back position to pick up passes. There's options there, right? And something Gio said to me on the watch-along when he came on at half-time, I asked him, why do you think we're struggling so much against teams who press the double pivot and press so high? And he was talking about, there's also the fact Kirk Zuma wants to pass it out more than, say, Dawson would, who would just punt it long. And again, that's part of the thing, is we're seeing the play potentially go through people like Souček a little bit more than we would otherwise, because we've got a centre back there who's going to pass the ball to them. If that press isn't happening, then I think you see a slightly different Thomas Souček. It won't solve all of his problems, but it certainly will stop it being the huge issue that we're seeing at the moment, where we have a guy who's sort of like is very shaky passing wise. And what I guess my biggest concern is, and this is why I say I think it's a slight cop out to an extent, is if you say it's like fatigue and everything else, and we put it just solely down to that, what happens when we face Everton or whoever, and the manager has seen that if you just press Thomas Souček, he can't deal with it, and then he starts getting pressed again? You know, when he's had a rest and whatever else, I think we need to figure out how to work around that. And I think today, when I was watching just to finish up, when I was watching you, I know I've been going on, I apologize, but when I was watching your review earlier, I had it on when I was doing the work earlier, and you were talking about like the bench and stuff like that. The one thing I would have typed if I was able to type at the time and I wasn't editing, would have been, he should have just come off a Lanzini, because if we're getting pressed, we need someone who's able to avoid that press, wriggle out of it, and find the pass with finesse. Yeah, and that's one thing Thomas Souček has never had, is finesse.
Yeah, but where is Alex Crowder, Charlie? He's sitting on the bench. He's a like-for-like replacement for him. I understand with Lanzini. Don't get me wrong. I agree with that partly. But Alex Crowder played a good game in the League Cup against Man United. He's on the bench. He hasn't played 1 minute of Premier League football. Right? Why? What is the reason why this man cannot get on the pitch in the Premier League?
Well, I don't know why David Moyes didn't make any substitutions today at all. That's just insanity. That's just pure lunacy. But I think with Krau, you look at it and you say, well, this is why I say Lanzini as opposed to Krau. I think a like-for-like replacement isn't what we needed. I think we needed to do something different. Maybe even you bring on Vlasic on the wing and then you put Fornals in that position or something. Just something to give the dynamic a change, because the problem in that first half wasn't, in my opinion at least, wasn't necessarily the personnel, although I don't think anyone was playing up to their level.
It was
tactics? Is
it because Souček and Rice are two very similar players now? Like, they're both scoring goals, or they both have scoring goals. And let's be honest, Declan's he drives with the ball, but one fault with Souček is his technical ability isn't good. Like, his aerial ability is phenomenal, and he's like, his work rate, his engine, superb, can't fault that. But his technical ability to get out of positions, like which we've seen before, obviously with Lanzini, it proves it. Do you know what I mean? So, is it just they're both very similar?
I think, and I think that was the difference when we had conversations before on American Hammers, and everyone would say, "Charlie, you're a lunatic." Whenever I'd say that Thomas Souček was more important than Declan Rice, that's kind of what I was getting at. Declan Rice at the time was someone who would sit and would screen the back four. Thomas Souček was the one who was making everything happen by going forward and back. But as Declan Rice grows into this box to box role that he so clearly wants to desperately do, and we also play a four at the back system where there's less protection, one of them has to stay back. And Thomas Souček essentially becomes a deep line playmaker. And at that point, you're like, we've got a deep line playmaker who frankly can't pass the ball. It's a mistake. But at the same time, like, if you're looking at that everyone who can play in that position before the game, you'd probably say you trust Thomas Souček more than any of, like, to partner Declan Rice, obviously excluding Declan Rice. You would say he's probably the one you would trust the most to do that sort of deep that DM role. Maybe not deep line playmaker, but when you're talking about defensive, when you're talking about threat going forward, when you're talking about all of that, you'd probably trust him more than anyone else at this point. So I understand why he's starting still, But at the same time, it's what we said. I think I said it on your show on the preview, but what we're doing with him allows everyone else around him to be a lot better. And I would rather have that one person sacrificed for the good of everyone than us change it up to make it work for Souček, but then be significantly worse, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree, mate. So what's your rating for Souček, mate?
5 again.
Okay. I'm gonna agree. Yeah. I need to see something from Souček, mate. If he's needs a rest, then Alex Crowell needs to find his boots, and Moyes needs to find him a place on the pitch, because I just don't understand it with the Alex Crowell thing. And I'll get onto that a bit later on, but it's a 5 for me. It's a 5 for Charlie on that. Yeah. Moving on to our captain, Mr. Declan Rice. I read something earlier, Charlie, on him, and he's absolutely gutted. He said, like, last week we won the game 2-1 and I felt over the moon. This week we lose the game in the 90th minute and I'm devastated. I thought, personally, he got overrun in midfield because they had 3 in midfield and they played around him. And obviously Souček was nowhere to be seen. Do you know what I mean? And what do you think, mate?
Probably fair. He made some really good tackles. Some really good tackles.
He was trying. I'll give him his due. He was trying to the end, but he just like with Souček not playing well.
The pressing thing. It's just always just a big concern for me, you know.
Yeah. Are we good enough to press these teams though? Right, because we're relying on pressing them, but in one ball they go straight for our midfield, and then they're in on goal. Do you know what I mean?
I guess it should be the other way around, that right? Like, I think we're good enough to press these teams, but when they're pressing us, we should be good enough to find a way around that, and we didn't, and we haven't.
Yeah.
Leeds second half we started to, but I think it was abundantly clear in the first half, about halfway through, we should have just been lobbing it over their midfield. Like, we shouldn't have even been considering going to Rice or Souček. It should have just been like, whoever has the ball, you punt it into the channels to where Antonio can find it and cause them problems, because there was so much space in behind. Because they press. Brentford press, and when they press, they press. It's not like us, where we sort of, it's a press, but it's quite conservative. We're trying to cut out passing lines. No, they're coming for you. They're coming for you, and they ain't going to stop. And that's when we should have been like, right. And it was something I mentioned on the watch along. If you watched German football when Pep and Klopp were there, and Klopp, I remember, got the better of Pep in one game. I can't remember which game it was, where it was Dortmund versus Munich, obviously, but I can't remember which specific one it was. But they asked him, like, how did you get around Pep's press, blah, 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 blah. And Klopp just went, I just kicked it over him. And you watched the match. It was literally just, here come the people, the ball's over them, it's gone, I'm through already, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And we needed to do that. It was very clear halfway through the first half we needed to do that. And then by the time they got in and Dave Moyes had the time to sort of talk to them, second half they came out and there was no space because they didn't come forward. And that makes sense, right? So when you're looking at that double pivot, it's like, whenever they get pressed, they get forced back. Thomas Souček sort of gets left in a little bit of no man's land, mainly because Declan Rice drops back so deep, we end up turning into essentially a back three, and then we can't move the ball past that. We're trying to sort of play it through the lines, which is fine. I quite like watching us play through the lines, right? That's sort of had the football I want to see us play on the floor, playing the ball around. It's the football I love. But at the same time, that was abundantly clear what needs to be happening. And the time we ended up starting doing that, it was already too late. Declan Rice, like, he gets forced into these weird positions when we get pressed, and it suits him to an extent because obviously he has a long history at centre-back, and some of the challenges he was making were really good. Out of the two, he was significantly better. I think a high 6 is probably where I'd go with on Declan Rice. I think he was significantly better, but you can see, to me at least, it's quite obvious that double pivot is going to be an issue against teams who will press high against us. God forbid when we face Liverpool. Jesus Christ.
The problem is with us, I've noticed it every time that they play this system. When we play against a 3-4-3 system, we don't win. We find it incredibly hard. Like, even a 4-3-3 system, and the problem is with that is they go 3 in midfield, and our midfielders get overrun. I agree with you. A high 6. I'm going to give him a 7 for his effort. I thought he tried his hardest. He was giving it everything, mate. But and do you know what? I'm loving the boy's passion, because he's feeling like us. Do you know what I mean? So Yeah. For some reason, we just can't beat a team when they set up 3-4-3 against us, and I don't know why, but it needs to be rectified. And whether or not a Souček coming out and having Crowell in there with a bit more energy, or whatnot, I don't know. But yeah, wasn't a good day for Rice, I must admit. But I'll give him a 7 for his effort and just being a great player anyway for us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Moving on to this man, Pablo Fornals. I thought he was quiet today, mate. And that's didn't really do anything, if I'm honest. What do you think, Charlie?
I think he was okay, but nothing more than that. I think that's the highest praise I could give him. Couple of nice passes. Worked hard. First half was... Second half was, yeah, okay. Some notable nice passes, but ultimately probably out of the front for the worst performer. Low 6, like barely scraping a pass sort of thing for me. Yeah, I don't know. It just didn't happen for him today at all. It just didn't happen for him today. Because we've, like me and you, we've disagreed on Fornals in the past. And today was the Fornals I see you talking about. Today was the Fornals I saw you talking about last season. Last season, I didn't see it. But today I saw it. And I was like, scraping a passing grade, I guess.
It's an hard one with me because I don't like to criticise our own. Right. But with him today, there was just nothing there. There's nothing there. Like his passing was hit and miss. He weren't really creative, so to speak. Like, and I look at him and I think to myself, like, what it is with Fornals and what really sort of drives me is there's no pace in him. So even if he was having a bad game, at least I know that if he's got the ball, he can beat a player and maybe whip a crossing or something. Do you know what I mean? But
sure, yeah.
Can you see what I'm getting at? And this sort of today, it was just he was quiet, and I'll give him a 5. I'll give him a 5. And I stopped being sort of overly critical, but I'm just there's nothing there for me.
The thing is with Pablo Fornals going forward, we can talk about his defensive work rate and everything else as long as the day is long or whatever, right? But with Pablo Fornals going forward, like you say, there's not much pace there, but he lights up when he's in tight spaces and finding good passes. That's his thing. He has this vision to find a pass and the ability to find the pass as well, not just see it. Like often I think Noble has the ability to see the pass but can't physically make the pass. There's times where he does something where I'm like, oh, if that played off, that would have been amazing, but it's just not happening. Whereas Fornals, it happens more times than not. There was one where he played this outside of the boot ball down the line to, I think, Mikel Antonio, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you saw it in that second half. There was that one where it was the quick throw in, and he did the quick 1-2 with Ben Rama to open up some space, and he's all of a sudden he's creating a chance and stuff. Maybe that was the first half. I think it was the second. But he has something. He has it there, but it's about finding him in the right positions to make that happen going forward. And we didn't do that enough today. And I think again, part of that is just because Brentford was so much better than us that they just hemmed us in, and he was forced to sort of stay back, and that completely nullified him. Like I say, barely scraping a pass for me. But yeah, today, like I said, today was the day I saw the Pablo Fornals you've spoken about. Usually I don't see it, but today I was like, oh, there it is. There he is.
Yeah, and obviously I don't like to sort of say it, but yeah. So what's your final rating on Fornals, mate?
I'll give him a 6, a low 6.
Low 6 for Fornals. Saeed Ben Rama. I'll let you go with this one first, Charlie. What's your thoughts on Mr. Benny?
I'll say high 6. High 6 going. Because the thing is, he took a lot of shots, and I think there were some times where, for example, when I was listening to the post-match reviews, there was some people who were criticizing him for maybe like the occasion sort of overawed him a little bit, and there were times where maybe he was shooting when he could have passed and stuff like that. I think that's maybe a criticism I would level at all of our front line today, as not just him. I think if the goal was going, if we were going to score more than one, I would have backed him to be the guy who got it. He seemed to be one of he out of that. I know Bowen scored, but to be honest with you, out of that line, he was the one who was the most, who felt the most likely to score. Yeah, he was doing a lot. I don't want to give him as far as a 7 because I don't think it's not been his best performance this season by a long stretch. I think he's been brilliant this year. But even so, I think he did a lot, and it was happening. And again, it was that thing we were talking about in the preview where when he does pick up the ball, he still is creating stuff and it is still worrying people. And part of that Brentford know everything about him, but at the same time, I think it was just good. I'll give him a high 6. And if he was a little bit luckier today, it would have been a 7 and maybe a goal or 2 for him today.
I like it when he has a shot though, because it shows intent that he's trying to score a goal. And I don't understand it when people sort of don't like this man to shoot, because if you don't shoot, don't score. And let's be honest, none of our front four did.
I'll tell you what, it depends. It depends. When Bowen does it, it really pisses me off, because Bowen's shooting from range, sometimes with his weak foot, and I'm like, bruv, I don't think I've ever seen you score from outside the box. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Ben Rama, I know, is going to consistent. It's like Lingard. I didn't mind Lingard shooting from target because I know he's going to hit the target constantly, you know?
Yeah, and if you've got a player who's constantly going to hit the target, he's either going to make the keeper work or it's going to go in, isn't it? There's no there's no other way about it. So, I'm going to agree with you on this one. It's a high 6, just not a 7. I thought he tried, but I think the second half he was a lot better than the first. I think what they'd done in the second half with Ben Rama is he sat a bit deeper, so he picked the ball up and he turned and ran, and that was a difference in the second half. But he had a free kick. Keeper done a good save. He had a few shots. He was trying, mate, but it just wasn't that day, and I'll give him a high 6 for that. Do you know what I mean? But moving on to this man, said Jared Bowen gets a goal, first goal of the season, I believe.
I think they said first goal in. I want to say first goal in 15 or something. They said for him. I think
it would not surprise me at all, Charlie. Yeah. Even though you look as shocked as us.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what's your thoughts on Bowen, mate?
Great finish. Excellent.
Great
finish.
Goal. Yeah.
Weak foot, bottom corner, as hard as you like. Love that. This is one of the ones where I feel like I was doing the watch along and I missed it, because I thought he was completely anonymous in that first half. I didn't see anything from Bowen in that first half. I'm more than happy to be willing to be proved wrong.
Yeah.
But when I was sitting there watching it, and at half time, when I started doing the wrap up for half time, I even said out loud, I was like, I don't really know what Bowen's done. He's not really done much.
I would say it was frustrating in the first half.
Okay.
I would say that. I wouldn't say he was bad, but he was frustrating. He was like getting to positions, he wouldn't pass it, or he'd run at someone, it'd go out for it'd go for a cross, and it'd go out for throwing or something. It'd be like, just do something else. Do you know what I mean? Second half, it was a lot better. He should have scored that header though. He should have scored that header though, Charlie. Not score it, maybe hit it on target. But when that ball comes in, he has the header. If that's on target, then I'd fancy it to go in. It's gone wide, and then he has that shot where it goes, he scores. Yeah. So, for me, if I was rating him, I'll give him a 7. That's a solid 7 for me. I think the goal was a decent goal. He tried in the second half. He was a lot better in the second half than he was in the first. It would have been a bit more, but it's just like a standard 7 for me, in my opinion.
Okay, I think I may be being a bit harsh, but maybe like a high 6. I think, like you say, I think he had a better second half, was getting a lot more involved. I think part of that was just Brentford were letting us. People don't like it when I say it, but I think it's true. I think Brentford just let us do what we wanted to do in the second half, and we're quite confident to just hold ourselves. But I do think he looked a lot more dangerous in the second half, and obviously he gets the goal for it. And I think the biggest thing I could say about him is he still worked hard. You still saw him putting in the effort. You still see him doing everything he has been doing the last couple of weeks. It's just a game that was more frustrating to watch. I'll say a high 6, but I know I'm maybe being a bit harsh. But again, I genuinely don't know. I can't think of a single thing he did in that first half. But again, I could be wrong.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I agree. We get on to this man, Mikel Antonio. I don't know where to start with him, mate. It seems like every time he's up against solid defenders, he goes missing. And today, he just wasn't there today. Like that cross that comes in from Rice, he should be getting his head on that.
That one, yeah.
What else did he really do, Charlie, to affect the game, in your opinion?
This is interesting to me because I think he was the best person on the pitch, potentially. For West Ham, at least, not on the pitch. Jesus Christ, I could name probably 11 Brentford players who were better.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting one with Mikel Antonio, because I think he was very clearly the answer in the first half, and he wasn't being found. And it was really frustrating to watch, because I felt like it was such an obvious thing, and I don't get why we weren't doing it, and he wasn't getting found. But when we were just punting up the field, he was the one person who was doing, in that first half, he was the one person really doing anything. And a part of that is just, there was a lot of space, but he was consistently finding the space and taking people on and trying to do stuff with it. And it's part of it is, and again, I tend to praise effort less than most people do. When I talk about it, and a lot of the time with Mikel Antonio over the years, I've got really frustrated by the amount people have praised his work rate, because I don't see it. I think he's got a decent attacking work rate, and I don't think he has any defensive work rate whatsoever. But B, like, I feel like it's kind of slightly, like I was saying with the Souček thing, to an extent, I think it's kind of a cop-out to be like, oh, he works hard. But I think in that first half, I kind of always praised him, because I think he was maybe the only one really doing that. And then in the second half, I think a lot of our... Again, when we found him, he was doing things with it and creating space with it, and it was. Again, it's that thing where if we scored a goal, I don't think he would have been the person to put it in the net, but I think he would have been the person to either create the chance by passing or by movement. So I find it really interesting that you say that, because I had a different read on him completely today.
I like the work rate. I like the pressing. I like the way he's going about it. But what did he do to affect the goal? Well, how did he make the goalkeeper work today? That's the way I look at it. And I just don't remember him doing. And he's supposed to be our main striker. Like, I know I'm going back in time a little bit, but the main strikers back in the day, like the Drogbas, the Costas, they made the goalkeeper work at some point in the game. Right? Yeah. Them sort of big lumps up front. And for me, he's not a wide man. He's a wide man, but he's not our wide man now. He's our centre forward, and he just didn't like the ball that comes in from Rice. Really should be. He should be getting his head on that. There's no two ways about it. He's a centre forward, and he's just let it go. And for me, I thought sometimes Antonio's very, very good, and then sometimes he's very ineffective. I've noticed it. I noticed it at Southampton away. He's ineffective in some games where he sort of ushered out the game, so to speak. So I understand what you're saying about the hard working, and he did try, and he was beating people and all that. I'm going to give him.
The thing is I would say I would largely agree with you as well to an extent. I think one of the things I like about this system is he's not as isolated as he used to be. Last season, and I'm talking about in general this season now as opposed to just today, but like last season, there were times where it would be him and at most him and Lingard and then that was it. It really was it. Whereas now, and that was why it was so frustrating when he would find the ball out wide last season. He would be in the middle of nowhere with no one around him, and he'd be out wide, not central, where he can at least take a shot or something. No, he has to do something more just to even get in a position to begin to think about shooting the ball. Whereas now we're in a system where he has a lot more people around him, Ben Rama, before now is when he gets forward, and Bowen. And that helps out a lot, where I can sort of forgive the sort of side-to-side movements when I feel like, where before I'd be like, he needs to be in the center. I was like, okay, now we can have other people be in the center. The only problem with it is like you say, when the ball gets whipped in by Rice, for example, it wasn't really a whip, it was a sort of dink or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. He should have got his head to that. And the annoying thing with Antonio specifically today, and it has, I wouldn't say it's been annoying for the rest of the time, although it has been for 18 months. Guy does not score headers anymore.
Yeah, and what did we say on the preview? What did we say on the preview?
We mentioned that exact thing. That was a golden opportunity. Antonio 3 years ago heads that in without even a second's thought. And I don't know what's gone on there. And like you say, I think that was easy. He should have put that in. But I'll give him a 7. But I do agree with a lot of what you're saying, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm going to give him. I'll give him a 6. He's a centre forward, and he's like, even if he has shots and the keeper's making saves, you can understand it. But when our best player really is like Bowen to a point, who's sort of trying and trying and trying, and Antonio's trying and trying and trying, but he's not he should be in the box, giving it 150%, and maybe like making the keeper work somehow. But I just think Brentford done their own work on him and all. Just like,
how do you feel about the idea of like, if we had a different centre forward, Bowen and Ben Rama would be less effective going forward as threats for the goal?
I do think Antonio, for how good Antonio is, when you look at Antonio and you look at Ivan Toney today, who would you rather have in your team?
Oh, Ivan Toney, but we had conversations about this last season where I was bigging up Ivan. Do you know what, really, again, saying about Rico Henry's defending, for example, the one thing that really was impressed me about Ivan Toney today, and I knew he could do it, but I didn't know he could do it to this level. The passing was so
superb.
Good.
Yeah.
Super, literally just cutting through the defense with really good passing. And that's certainly something Mikel Antonio does not have.
And I just look at it like this, Charlie, with Antonio, for how good he is, and we spoke about it on the preview, because me and you talk a lot of sense, is that he works on instinct.
Yes, yeah.
And well, you don't really see Antonio pick the ball up, beat a player, and then smash it into the bottom corner. He's more, the ball has to come in, he'll roll it up, turn and shoot, or something like that. It's sort of, he works on an instinct basis where when he has to think about it, then he's not good. But when he hasn't got to think about it, it's in the back of the net. And I'm not knocking Antonio because he's been great for us this season, but today he just wasn't at it. He just wasn't at it at all, mate. A few more people to talk about, and we're going to get to this man. The ref. Charlie, where do we begin with the ref, mate? Time wasting, yellow cards. What do you make of him, mate?
This is my biggest difference to most football fans, is I really couldn't give less of a crap what the ref does. Like, in my head, the referee is just the referee. Whatever the referee says goes, and you move on. You sort of deal with it. I think it's easy to be frustrated, and I think Brentford could have got a couple more yellows. If I was to really talk about it, I think Brentford could have probably got a couple more yellows, either for time wasting and just for niggly challenges. I don't blame Brentford for that. I think Brentford are totally okay doing it, and I have no problems with Brentford doing that. It wasn't. I don't have a complaint about it. But yeah, when it comes to the referee, I think whatever the referee, my opinion is genuinely whatever the referee says goes, and it's your job to sort of deal with it as opposed to deeps it too much. That's kind of my opinion on the refs in general, to be honest.
I think he booked the people at the right time. Like, he didn't in some fouls he let go, but I have to agree with you. I'll give the referee a 4, mate. I thought he was just right. Let's be generous. Some of the things that he did let go though was unreal. Like some of the fouls and the time wasting and little niggly things. The goalkeeper taking forever to take a goal kick was another thing. Like he moved the ball from one side to the other, and as soon as they go 1-0, he's rushing to take the goal kicks. And so I'll give him a 4. What's your rating on the ref, mate?
I'll say 5, but I think he did. There was a significant period in that second half where I think he lost control a little bit. The thing happening with David Moyes and a couple of other bits where you're just like, a more competent, a better ref puts his stamp on that game and stops it all from happening. That's what, and he did not do that. So I'd say a 5. But like I say, I'm really of the opinion of just the ref is the ref, and you just deal with it, sort of thing.
100%, mate. Well, what we're going to do now, Charlie, is we're going to get to the subs that we didn't do.
Okay, right, let's do it. I'm here for it.
Right, we're here for the subs now. And there was none, so we have to move on. So, but now we're going to get on to the man who's supposed to bring the subs on. Charlie, explain to me something, right? Why was there no subs today from him?
Oh, because David Moyes is a waste man, fam. No,
Be honest. Did it surprise? Well,
no, it didn't surprise me, but I have a significantly more negative opinion on David Moyes than most people does. So I don't know. He just does these things sometimes where you're just like even if you were trying to be conservative, and I said about 70th minute, 75th, 77th, something like that. On the watch long, I said, right, now's the time where even if you're trying to avoid it, now's the time to make substitutions. And we just didn't. I don't know. We set up...
after the goal, though, Charlie. Like, even we scored a goal, right? I would have thought, right, get these players on the pitch now, right? It's the 80th minute. We've just scored. Bring on Johnson for Kefal. Bring on Vlasic, and bring on even Krau even for like Souček, and go just do 3 subs and just freshen it up, a bit more energy, and we might have got the win there. And he just stands there and just does nothing. Like, to me,
there's a huge benefit to doing subs before your opposition thinks you're going to do subs. Because you're making them think differently than they already were. I often think there's a huge benefit to that, and we do the opposite of that most of the time.
It just, to me, it seemed like he had no faith at all in his bench today. I don't know about you, but he looked at his bench and he's gone, and we see them all warming up. See Krau warming up, Dawson, all these players warming up, and he brings no one on. It just makes no sense to me.
To me, it read more like he had too much faith in the team that was on. I think my problem with it is I read the game differently to Dave Moyes, clearly, because my reading of the game was Brentford were comfortable holding on to this. I know, for example, I was watching the American Hammers post-match shout, and I said to Irish Tommy in the comment section that Brentford deserved it fully. I felt they were better in the first half, and I felt in the second half they had our number and they dealt with it quite well. And they defended as resolutely as you're ever going to like. And Tommy was like, "No, we were on top. We deserved at least a draw." Blah 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 blah. Right?
Nah.
And I think Moyes probably read it the same way, where he looked at it and felt like we're significantly on top here. And I think actually, to an extent, how Scott has just said it in the chat there, we have the momentum, and so we don't really need to. We shouldn't make subs or whatever. But I do genuinely think, like, for me, I looked at it and I felt like Brentford were incredibly comfortable with what we were doing in the first half and in the second. And I think in the second half, that's what you look to do. You look at, be it at the goal, before the goal, after the goal. I don't really think it matters, but at some point you look to change it up to put extra pressure on them because they were able to sit back. And I think it was quite frustrating to see their manager be very proactive with his substitutions. I mean, obviously, there were some where he was injured, so he have to, but like genuinely like going, okay, right, we're going to switch this person up. We're going to switch this person up. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then we just sit there and have no change whatsoever. And if they're changing their tactics, which they did do, they like brought on Wissa, for example, who changed their shape slightly and all this other sort of stuff. If they changed their tactics and our answer to that was still the exact same thing, I'm not really sure what you're doing at that point. You just seem like you're just throwing, and you're not throwing everything at it because you've got a bunch of blokes on the bench sitting there who could be throwing at it. You're just going, nah, we'll keep doing this. And at that point, I'm like, I don't know.
For me, I think he got it drastically wrong. I understand not bringing subs on when the goal, like the momentum. I don't break the momentum up in the second half because we were pressing and we was all over him. But as soon as that goal goes in from Bowen, that is the time to make the subs. Because not only that, it's a breaking play. We've just scored. We're bringing on fresh legs, and we've got the energy then to sort of go right. Get Souček off, get Kefal off if he's not cutting it. Maybe even Fornell's going to come off right at some point, and just gone for it. Do you know what I mean? But to sit there and have players out there who, let's be honest, were knackered, some of them, and just literally expecting Brentford, who were fresh, like they've had a whole week to prepare for this game. I thought it was criminal, Charlie. I just do not understand what he was thinking. Like, do
you think he was happy with a draw?
I think he was settling for a draw. Like, as soon as that goal goes in, because a manager who wants to win does not have that team the way it is. Like, he goes, right, Vlasic on, Lanzini on, Ben Johnson get on. Right, imagine that. Imagine having 3 of them coming on and going, right, now, as soon as you get the ball, get it wide and get up the pitch. And with the pace of Ben Rama, Bowen, Vlasic, having Ben Johnson at right back, maybe. I just don't understand how you can. Right, and I disagree with what Tommy was saying there on what you've just said about what Tommy was saying. We played well for 35 minutes in that second half, right? And we got to the 80th minute, we scored the goal, and then after that we didn't do nothing else. Like apart from the cross from Rice, where Souček or Antonio apart from that, we've done nothing else in that after the 80th minute. And to me, we've had a 35-minute spell in the second half where we've done well. But in the grand scheme of things, I think Brentford completely deserved to win today. And if we would have got a draw, we would have all sat here now gone, oh, he's lucky today. Like, but we've got a point, but we'll take the point. Do you know what I mean? Because considering how well Brentford were in the first half. Can you see what I'm saying? So for me, if I'm rating him, I'm giving him a 4, mate. Like, I think it's just criminal what he's done today. Really is. I'm not blaming the result on him because he's picked the right team. Right? He's picked his strongest team. But there's questions need to be asked. If Kefal wasn't fit because he just didn't look himself, was that the right call? When Ben Johnson played, let's be honest, played one of his best games in a counter blue shirt on Thursday. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And then, like, we score a goal and there's just no change. So I'll give him a 4, mate, at best for me.
Yeah, I think I'd probably give him a high 4 as well. I mean, it's difficult because I probably would have selected the same lineup as him, but it's easy to say in hindsight that it was. It's easy to say in hindsight it was the wrong thing. Like when I would have done the exact same thing. Like I think maybe the right thing would have been changing to the 5 at the back, and then you'd have to take out someone. It would probably be. I mean, depressingly, it would probably actually be Ben Rama in that case. But like, you would have to take someone out in order to facilitate it. But I think that was maybe the right option. But again, I think it's easy to sit here and say that in hindsight, when is at the beginning of the game, I would have done the exact same thing he did. The problem is everything after that moment, you have the opportunity. Like really, the substitute's there to kind of bail you out. Like if it's not going well, you want to look at you want to change something. You can. You have 3 options to try and change something, right? You have 3 chances to change something, and I think it wasn't going well, and we didn't change anything. And so I think everything after the word "go," when it clearly wasn't going well, when Brentford were all over us, he didn't change anything. And so yeah, I think a high 4. I feel harsh saying it, but I can't. If the players on the pitch aren't doing it, which they weren't, what have they got to do to get subbed off?
It's a great point. It's a great point, and that's the way. And the way it's not just that. I look at the other side of the coin of it. What's the players got to do to get on the pitch?
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Do you know what I mean? What have they? Yeah. But what's the like of Krau, Vlasic? I don't want to say Yarmolenko, right? Obviously not. But even Lanzini to a point, like. If these players, if they're sitting there on the bench, they're going, look at these players, just nothing's happening. I can't even get on there. And I don't know why. And this is why I sort of left this to the last person. Yeah. I don't understand what Alex Krau's got to do to get on this pitch. And that's the $1 million question with me. We've signed a player from Spartak Moscow. You know, one full game in the League Cup. And let's be honest, I think he could have come on there today and shored things up in midfield. Even if you took even if you'd went to a 4-3-3 system and took 4 nails out, Krau in, Krau, Souček, and Rice to sort of compress it, and then sort of try and win the midfield battle. But it just seems like someone's nicked his boots and they can't find them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think with that one specifically, it's just Moyes being conservative Moyes, you know?
Yeah.
What he did with Ben Rama, what he's done with lots of other people in the past, they're just going to keep appearing every so often and doing quite well, and then not sort of starting, and you're sitting there thinking, well, what have they got to do to start? And if the issue gets forced, the issue gets forced. I don't know. I think we'll see. I think Krau specifically, we'll see him turn up more often after he's had some more games when we've had cup games, be it Europa or whatever, and he'll get chances then, and then he just needs to keep performing, and then eventually he'll come in. But I mean, look, if Souček is as injured as as tired as we all think he is, he might end up getting injured, and then if he gets injured, then there'll be no choice but to play Krau, and then at that point we'll see what happens. But yeah, it is what it is at this point. We'll see how it plays out. But disappointing, James, very disappointing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, mate. I must admit, to sort of end on a high of this week from last Saturday to now. Yeah. Like in 8 days, we've gone to Leeds and won in the last minute. We played really well against Rapid Vienna. like not really well, but we've done the job and got the job done against Rapid Vienna. And then we come out today and we just look like the old West Ham now. And that is going back to the old days of West Ham being that sort of team. But any final thoughts, Charlie, before we wrap it up, sir?
We need to figure out what to do when teams press us. It's weird. I think our big weakness now is the exact opposite of what our weakness was last season. I think last season and before that, our weakness was when teams sat deep and just let us do our thing because we didn't really have the answers. Now it seems like we have the answers, but what we've sacrificed with that is when teams pressurize us, we look scared and lost and shaky, and we need to figure out what to do because there's better teams than both Brentford and Leeds. Brentford are better than Leeds, and we've seen what happens when a better team than Leeds do the same thing Leeds did to us. What happens when a better team than Brentford do what Brentford did to us? And that's not to diss Brentford. It's just the hierarchy of the Premier League, right? You have 20 teams. There's going to be some that are better than others, and that's my concern because more teams play like Brentford right now than play like whoever sits deep. Do you know what I mean? It's just the thing. So we need to figure that out. I'm trying to look at it as one game. Sucks. I think Brentford fully deserved it.
I agree.
It's annoying to say, but I just think they did. Outplayed us in the first half, outworked us in the second, outfought us in the second. More importantly, they fought for that victory. And I think that's a huge benefit. It's a huge compliment to both Brentford and Thomas Frank. They'll stay up this season quite handily. I feel like you say. I think they're just almost sort of background contenders for top 10, top 10 finish. But yeah, it sucks. We see what happens. We've time off now. Hopefully, come back and refine that form we had. Because it sucked. It sucked.
Yeah. Sort of round it up for me. I thought Brentford deserved it. I thought first half they could have been 2 or 3-0 up. If it weren't for Fabianski saving us from Tony and amongst other things. I think second half, I agree with you. Yeah, again, mate, they outfought us. They was up for it and we weren't. And it's a shame, really. The fear I have now is I don't want us to go back to the old West Ham because of Europe. I've seen a new West Ham here where they're vibrant. The fear I do have, though, this is a bit of a fear that I have, is that we are relying on 11 players to do the job every game. And we've got no faith in our bench, basically, and that is not good. Moyes got it a little bit wrong today with the subs, but other than that, I think Brentford deserved it. And I think if we would have got a point out of the game, we would have been saying, well, we got lucky today. And we got what we, as I said earlier on my show, we got what we deserve and we got nothing. So, yeah, next game's Everton away. It's got to assess it. Maybe some changes need to come in. Maybe like Crowell needs to enter the pitch and Areola for the Premier League now. Start giving these players the opportunity to shine and see where we are at. Yeah. But Charlie, I want to thank you for coming on, mate. You are a true gentleman. Awesome. You've done this with me over the weekend. The Brentford preview and player ratings, it didn't go the way we wanted. No. But we've got a nice international break now to think about it for the next 2 weeks. So yeah.
just a nice sit and stew on all of our failures and misgivings.
That's it.
And then we come back for Everton really jaded and depressed. It's going to be great. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, Everton away at Goodison, where we've only won once, and that was last year in like X amount of time. So, I can't wait for that. I want to thank everyone who's been in the chat tonight. I went through your comments, but obviously when you're doing this, I'm talking to Charlie, I'm looking at the comments. Us men can't do 3 things at once. But if you like what I've done with this video, or give it a thumbs up. If you like the channel, give it a subscribe. It goes a long way, helps me out greatly. It really does, mate. Me and Charlie will be back again soon doing something in the near future. So, thanks, everybody. Bye-bye for now. Take care and all the best. Peace.
Hello.